Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're digging into something that affects pretty much everyone: salaries in Nepal.
Yeah, and what really struck us looking through some online discussions where people share their actual pay is just how, well, wide the range is.
Exactly. You see numbers like, what, 10,000 NPR a month, and then others talking about lakhs. It really makes you think, what's driving these huge differences?
It does. And these aren't official stats. These are real people talking about their jobs, teaching, IT, medicine, accounting, engineering. It gives you a raw look.
So our mission, if you like, for this deep dive is to try and map out this salary landscape, understand the gaps, maybe touch on exploitation concerns.
And also get a sense of what life's like for the top earners. Plus, how things like remote work and brain drain fit into all this.
Okay, let's start with teaching. That seems like a field where things are, well, all over the place.
Definitely. For a +2 level teacher, so grades 11 and 12, we saw mentions of pay per period, like per class they teach each month.
Right, ranging from maybe 6,500 NPR up to 15,000 per period, which if you're full-time could mean maybe 45,000 or more. But it seems to depend on the subject too, like science versus social sciences.
Yeah, lots of variables. Subject, number of classes, the school's location. We even saw an anecdote from about 10 years ago, a teacher outside Kathmandu earning 60,000 a month teaching class 10. Long hours, though, like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Wow, that's a long day. And that story also mentioned needing shares sometimes to even get hired in certain places. A bit murky.
Not always straightforward. Then again, we saw a computer teacher making 30,000 for just 2 periods a day. So the rate there seems, quite decent
No,
comparatively.
it does. And talking rates, someone mentioned 750 NPR for a 45-minute period back in 2074 BS.
Right, and average ranges outside the valley, maybe 13,000 to 18,000 a month for teaching just 1 period a day.
Yeah.
It's quite varied.
Okay, so that's school level. What about higher education, college professors?
Well, that's where the numbers can really jump. If someone's teaching, say, bachelor's and master's courses, maybe part-time, but across multiple colleges, they could potentially pull in like 100,000 to 150,000 NPR a month.
That's a big step up. And then there's the government side, right? The Sarkari Jagir.
Exactly. We saw a mention of a retired government college professor, good pension, over 50,000 a month, on top of whatever their salary was before retiring. So stability is a big draw there.
Sure, that long-term security counts for a lot.
Definitely. And interestingly, we also saw bachelor's course instructors earning like 1.6 lakhs per course. So in certain specific fields, maybe high demand ones or private institutions, the potential is quite high.
And for professors at places like TU or KU?
Well, with experience, research, maybe taking classes at private colleges too,
Mhm.
their earnings can really climb over time. Teaching master's level offers flexibility too.
And private tuitions, that came up too.
Oh yeah. One person mentioned earning over a lakh a month just from tuitions. Way more than their 30,000 school salary. Shows the demand.
But despite these higher figures sometimes, there was also this feeling some called teaching modern slavery.
That was a strong sentiment, yeah. The effort versus the reward, even with, the income tax being quite low, just 1% if you earn under 5 lakhs a year, it seems many feel undervalued.
Okay, let's switch to the tech sector, another area with huge variation, it seems.
Absolutely. We saw business analysts, project managers, maybe 3.5 years experience earning around 40,000 NPR.
Yep.
And they felt underpaid.
Right, and then you compare that to, what was it, a senior tech person, 3 years experience, remote job, pulling in 3 lakhs a month.
That remote element is key, isn't it? Accessing the global market changes everything.
Totally. Even within Nepal, for software developers, you see someone with 1.5 years in Python maybe getting 30,000.
But then a full stack dev with 2 years might be on 85,000. And a senior engineer in Kathmandu, 4 years in, maybe 150,000.
And that US-based remote job example was wild. A full stack dev, just 1 year experience, 134,000 USD annually, with stocks and bonuses.
It's a different world, financially speaking. It really shows the global demand. We also saw QA engineers, maybe 15,000 up to 48,000, depending on experience in the company, I guess.
And freelancers, software engineers working for multiple clients.
Yeah, they reported potential earnings of 2 to 5 lakh NPR a month. So huge potential if you go the freelance, often international route.
It suggests a shift, maybe? Not just the traditional path.
Right. Still have the intern starting at maybe 15K, going permanent 25K, maybe eventually becoming a CEO earning 4 lakhs plus. But these other paths are definitely opening up.
We also saw that story of the tech writer. Started at 20K, job hopped, got up to 80K.
Yeah, that reinforces the advice we saw a lot.
Hmm.
Gain experience, change jobs. That seems to be the way to significantly increase your salary in tech.
And that possibility of earning over 1.2 lakh for just 24 hours a week remotely, that's got to be tempting.
For sure. Tech really shows both ends of the spectrum, modest starts and potentially incredibly high earnings, especially tapping into that global market.
Okay, let's turn to the medical field. The picture seems different here. More challenging, perhaps.
It appears so. We heard from a medical officer in Kathmandu earning about 40,000 MPR. They broke it down to roughly 5,000 MPR per 24-hour shift.
Wow. And the feeling was clear. Doctors feel underpaid in Nepal.
That sentiment came through quite strongly. We saw interns mentioned at just 5,000 a month, and a government hospital doctor at 18,000 a month.
Which seems incredibly low considering the years of study and the responsibility.
It does, especially when you contrast it, maybe unfairly, but you contrast it with aviation. Pilots flying to remote areas earning 12 lakh a month.
Or Buddha air captains, 6 to 8 lakh. Now, granted, there is huge risk involved, especially with remote flights.
Absolutely. The risk factor is acknowledged for the higher pilot pay and Nepali pilots abroad, potentially up to 40 lakhs a month, reportedly.
Still, it throws the medical salaries into sharp relief.
It does. One medical officer in a district hospital talked about the workload, 150, 200 OPDR cases, inpatients, medical legal stuff. Huge volume. They said the pay was satisfactory, but the workload was immense.
It really makes you question how we value these essential roles, doesn't it?
It does. We did see some government figures, interns around 18,500, medical officers around 44,000. A bit higher than some anecdotes, but still, modest for the work involved.
Right. Okay, what about chartered accountants?
CAs.
Okay, CAs. The starting point for a licensed CA seems to be around 60,000 to 70,000 NPR a month, which reflects the tough qualification process.
Yeah, that sounds like a decent starting point given the exams and articleship and growth potential.
Seems quite varied. In corporate roles, maybe 1.5 lakhs up to over 5 lakhs a month after, say, 5 years. This depends heavily on the company's size sector.
In audit firms.
Starts around 1 lakh, potentially much higher, but that seems more dependent on networking, bringing in clients, things like that.
It's known to be a really demanding course. The articleship is tough, very intensive. But interestingly, we also heard the view that maybe becoming a CA is a bit overhyped in terms of guaranteed high earnings.
Oh, how so?
Well, some felt that graduates could struggle to find those top jobs and might end up competing with bachelor's or master's grads for similar roles and pay. Some CAs apparently even look abroad for completely different work.
Huh. So it's not necessarily an automatic ticket to big money for everyone.
Apparently not. It suggests a potential mismatch sometimes between the perceived value and the actual market compensation for some.
Okay, and just quickly touching on a few others mentioned, civil engineers.
Yeah, we saw one example started at 12K back in 2015, but is now earning 360K.
Wow.
But that's abroad in Canada, again,
Wow.
highlighting the international pull.
Right, and entry-level teachers, grades 6 to 8, maybe 15, 20K a month.
We also saw a civil engineer with 7 years experience here, earning 55K in consulting, planning to go abroad. Another with 3 years on 30K, also planning to leave for a master's overseas.
That feeling of needing to leave seems common in engineering too.
It does. And then some other examples. A wedding camera person making 8, 10K a day, which is quite good.
Yeah, seasonal maybe, but good daily rate.
An Army corporal, 4+ years service, feeling unhappy with 29K a month. An assistant pharmacist at 21, earning 16,000.
And some more extreme, maybe less typical examples?
Yes. Used cautiously, of course, but someone identifying as a mercenary, claiming 400K a month at 26, and a small drug dealer claiming 70K at 16. Just illustrating the sheer range of ways people make money, legal or otherwise, and the disparities.
Okay, so that really brings us to the big debate, doesn't it? Is foreign employment becoming, well, the main option for significant income growth?
It certainly looks that way for many, based on these accounts. When you compare local salaries, especially in fields like engineering or even tech sometimes, with what's possible abroad or through remote international work.
The pull is undeniable. And the frustrations about underpayment here, the long hours, lack of satisfaction, it's all feeding into it.
Absolutely. People feeling exploited, wanting better opportunities, a better standard of living. It's a major driver of brain drain, which is a huge concern for Nepal.
And it's not just about the money itself, is it? There's social pressure, family expectations. Wanting to work abroad seems ingrained for some, even if their local salary isn't terrible.
That's true. The perceived status matters. But we should also acknowledge the sources did mention high earners within Nepal.
Right. CEOs of banks, top surgeons, experienced pilots on domestic routes, senior tech leaders.
Exactly. So achieving significant financial success is possible here. It just might be concentrated in certain sectors or require reaching quite senior levels. It's not like foreign employment is the only path, but it often looks like the most accessible path to high earnings for many professionals.
So, wrapping this deep dive up,
Mm.
what are the key takeaways? We've definitely seen a massive range in salaries.
Huge range, influenced by experience, industry, location, and increasingly whether you can tap into that global remote work market.
And clear concerns about underpayment, especially in really vital jobs like teaching and healthcare, when you weigh the work against the pay.
Yeah, that feeling of being undervalued is strong,
Mm.
and it directly links to the brain drain issue, the appeal of leaving.
We also touched on that top 1% lifestyle, though, without putting a number on it. But those salaries over 12 lakh a month, top pilots, bank CEOs, give you a sense of the very peak.
hmm So it leaves us, and you listening, with some big questions. Right? Given all of this, what can actually be done?
Policy changes, individual strategies.
Maybe things like really investing in skills for remote work, or pushing harder for better labor standards, more competitive pay locally in those key sectors. What could actually make a difference to stop people feeling they have to leave?
It's a complex problem. So the final thought for you, the listener, is this. Reflecting on Nepal's salary landscape as we've discussed it, what do you think are the most crucial steps? What's needed to build more equitable, more fulfilling career paths within Nepal?
Something to definitely think about. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.